all 4 subscribers. Welcome. I'm wearing my Penn State University sweatshirt just because, in light of there was this certain thing that popped up in Penn State where they are now not allowing anyone who goes outside, like clubs, to be outside. I'm just gonna hold on. I'm gonna start. Yes, I want to stop streaming. Well, screw it. We're just gonna keep talking. So tonight, what I found out, I have this book that is talking. It's from 1986, and it's a CIA book. I'll show it to you. See how I can turn this around. So you can see this here. This is the book that I've been reading. It highlights in 1945 there was an artist, a painter, an artist called Henry Lesoc, I think I say that right, who was working with this OSS that turned into CIA after World War II to basically create all the platforms for D-Day to happen, because he had all these different connections. It really stuck with me to read that, because when you know how pop culture has been manipulated and manufactured through lots of different pop artists, pop everything. And then when you try to tell people, hey, they're connected to government, no one wants to hear it. They think you're crazy. But what's really important to understand is that unless you're living with your head in the sand, you know that powerful people gravitate towards powerful platforms, right? And they're not going to let an opportunity go by them. And not even that, don't you think they're going to create those platforms in the first place in order to create the power in the first place? So in my journey of the art world, there was something that I thought was really interesting with a movement that happened in the late 1800s, and I've been kind of obsessed with it for a while. It was called the symbolism movement. And most people, the average person, doesn't hear about that movement because it was happening in conjunction with the Impressionist movement. And everyone knows Van Gogh, everyone knows Monet, everyone knows Manet, they all know that kind of thing, but have you ever heard of the symbolism movement? There's a reason why. Because at the exact same time, the symbolism and the Impressionist movement was going on, the naturalism movement, to really show the beauty of real nature, was getting destroyed. And the symbolism movement was trying to warn people about what was going to come. The Scream. That's probably the one thing that people will remember. If you say the Scream painting, they'll be like, oh yeah, I know that. But did you know that was part of the symbolism movement, not the Impressionist movement? There's a reason for that. There were two philosophies that were fighting. The symbolism movement was trying to forewarn people of the coming annihilation if they allowed industrialism and theosophy to run in the 20th century. These were the folks that were down and listened to all these people involved in theosophy, involved in trying the impressionists, the folks that were doing the transcendental movement. There was a lot of spiritualism in the 19th century. A lot of different they called themselves Christians, but they were cults. Like Emerson. I know a lot of people think Emerson's so great, but Emerson was a transcendentalist. He was trying to find utopia on earth. Okay? And there was a fight of people that were trying to express themselves through visual arts, the possibility of what can happen, and then let's just focus on how we can perceive it. The Impressionists clearly won. And the reason that they won was because it was starting to teach people that what you see as reality in the natural world isn't always quite right. Yeah, it is actually. Yeah, it actually is. The symbolism movement, I'm going to show you some photographs. This is from a book that I have, and I want to show you some very significant images that the symbolism movement was trying to express. Now, for those of you that are well versed in symbolism and sacrifice and the sun god, okay, this is a symbol of Lucifer. All right, now this is Gustave Moreau, and the painting is called Galatea from 1896. Okay, it deals with the it's saying. It's the late work illustrates the unrequited love of Cyclops. Oh wait, no, I'm sorry, that's the wrong one. This is Jupiter and Semele, if I say that right. Semele was Jupiter's lover, wished to see God's face. Jupiter granted her the request, but she died overwhelmed by the dazzling vision. Really? Who does that look like? Who does that look like? You think that's God? Look at those flames coming out of there. And then interestingly enough, it shows Pan with the music here. There's blood coming down from her hip. She's naked and completely in awe, but basically a muse sacrifice. To who? Who is this person? This is not Jupiter. Jupiter was the Roman god that was actually a manifestation of Lucifer. I mean, it's right here. Let's go over here to this side of the page. And this deals with Cyclops. Again, monster, the Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast. Okay, and this is what it says here down below. You can read it. Okay. Most people have not even seen these images. I want to show you this, because this is super important. This is the all idea of Salome. Okay? This is Salome. Salome. They were painting Salome. Gustav Klimt was painting Salome like no one's business. And I'll flip in the future to the next page with Klimt. But this is Gustave Moreau who painted this. And this is an image of, what was this? Salome asking for the head of John the Baptist. This is extremely important, as an art piece because there's a spirit, okay, behind any kind of ideology, and they know it, of trying to destroy the truth. And this image, this painting with the symbolism movement was trying to express that. Okay. Let's go to another image. There's the lady in red. This is under Dante Rossetti. This is Venus. And in a lot of occult symbology, the lady in red has a lot of meaning to it. A lot of meaning. Very beautiful. Very seductive. But do you see what she's holding? She's holding an arrow and she's holding an apple. The seduction. There's a reason why all these painters were painting these things. We're going to jump here. This one's really intense because then it just starts showing the outright witchcraft of certain sects that were going on. Look very carefully. That's Salome. Okay. They were telling us back in 1896 what was going to happen. There's all these women. This is Klimt. And you see that these young, beautiful women getting used up into the hag. Okay. Let's go on. All right, so going specifically to Klimt. Klimt was obsessed with this lady right here. This was the originator. She paid for all of his paintings about her. She was a very wealthy lady, and she loved being painted, so that she would always be, I guess, she'll live forever. Her name was Anna Behr Mildenberg. Take a good look. This woman was highly involved with ancient Babylonian Talmud philosophies, the ancient Kabbalah. She knew all the different arts. And don't think that she didn't influence the artists, because she did. With her money, her symbolism, and how she was propagated as Salome. The same Salome in the Bible that killed John the Baptist. Okay? But they call it Judith. It's not Judith, it's Salome. And they know it. So let's move on to this. This is if you have kids in the room, okay, if you've got kids in the room, let them go away, because this is really graphic. We're going down a really dark path here with Alfred Kubin. Alfred, I think, was someone who was definitely steeped in a lot of the occult stuff that was going on in the late 18th century, and he drew it. There's the beast that's totally focused on this, and there's the innocent young virgin who doesn't want to see it, doesn't want to know it, knows that it's evil, but she's vulnerable. And she's trying to hide her face, but she's stuck in a corner. And she's stuck between a rock and a hard place. Literally a rock, right there, and a hard place. This poor artist was really conflicted, and he ended up dying young, which is really sad. I think he saw a lot of bad stuff, clearly. This is another one. Again, if you have got small kids, this is really rough to see, but it's important to talk about because this was going on. This kind of art, this kind of philosophy was going on in the late 1900s. But I think that it was done as a warning, not as a celebration. Maybe some of them were as a celebration. But if you notice, with this one here, this is all goddess worship. Because if you look closely, this is a man who's diving into the vagina. It's goddess worship that creates death. It's a death cult. It's a death cult. Okay, this painting is Edward Munch. And a lot of you guys know Edward Munch from The Scream. That famous painting called The Scream. Okay? But he did this. Why did he do this? What was he trying to say? He knew that they were gardening the evil through Theosophy. And he was trying to show it through his paintings. This is one that really touches me. This one is very special to my heart. And I'll tell you why. This was a painting that was done in 1903. Okay? And this is by Hugo Simberg. And it's called The Wounded Angel. The symbology of this painting, anytime truth comes down into this world, it ends up getting sacrificed to the lesser of evils. Look at these young boys that clearly they don't look very smart. They're very base. They're dressed in black. They're not very happy. They don't want to learn anything. And there's a beautiful angel, a young girl, who might have the keys to the kingdom of talking about so many things to be able to free these folks, but they don't want to hear it. Sorry, I'm catching a cold. They don't want to hear it. They'd rather get rid of her. They blind her. They don't let her know where she's going. Where are they going to go with her? But it's more convenient to get rid of her because of their familiar stances, even though they may be miserable in their situation. It's easier to find her as the scapegoat. And then they miss out on being able to raise it up. It's a very powerful piece. It's very sad, but it's very powerful because it says a lot about what happens over and over again. And I'm going to stop there for a minute with showing you paintings. Sorry, I started catching a cough. Because a lot of times, that's what ends up happening. The people that are trying to raise awareness for certain things, they end up becoming that sacrificial person. Because you throw a wrench in the game. But you're not trying to throw a wrench in the game. You're just trying to raise it up. I mean, people complain all day long how bad the world is. But then when you finally get an answer of how you can fix it, that means major overhaul in how people live. And are a lot of people down with that? They like their familiarity. So they'd rather sacrifice the person that's the messenger. So, with that being said, with this book, the CIA book that I've been reading here, I came across some really interesting connections. Okay, there's the symbolism. There's the symbolist movement. I'm going to show you the cover of this book. Okay, that's where that came from. It's called Symbolism. If you're interested in reading it, awesome. You know, get to know it. It's a good book. And you can decide for yourself what it's telling you. For me, those are things that were telling me based on what I've been involved with for a long time in the art world and in other realms. So what we're going to do now is jump to this stuff that I found out. So I've been reading this book. I mentioned it in the last video. Okay, this is a book that I don't know if this was public. I can't even imagine this would be public. It was published in 1986, and we've had it in the family library for a long time. So I wanted to start reading it and make some connections with some stuff. And the first thing that popped out was there was an artist. There was an artist called Henri. He was from Pittsburgh, from the late 1800s until I think he died in 1953. His name was Henri Leroux. I'll spell out his name in the comments. But I found it really interesting that he was from Pittsburgh. He lived in Pittsburgh. He was from France, but he lived in Pittsburgh. And the CIA, based on what they're saying in this book, was saying that he was a guy that they used. Oh, here it is. The spelling of his name. Now we'll see if you guys can find more information on him. Henry. Okay, Henry. It's basically spelling. His last name was L'*AUSSUCQ. Okay. Now, what it's saying here, I'm going to show you this because, you know, I don't want you guys thinking that I'm just talking out of my wazoo. This is a photograph taken with President Truman, General Donovan. You got to look up Wild Bill Donovan. He was the first dude that started up the CIA. And artist Henry Leroux in 1945. That's a picture of all three of them together. And I want you to read verbatim. This isn't just coming from me. This is from this actual book. It says, President Truman talks with General Donovan and artist Henry Leroux in 1945. Leroux was instrumental in organizing underground operations in France in preparation for D-Day. He was a Pittsburgh artist who Donovan found had very good connections in France. Don't tell me they don't use artists. Don't tell me they don't use artists. And then on top of all this, I found out about this. I watched this really funny spy movie. It was a it was back in the 1960s. I'll have to look it up. They do spoofs. They do spoofs of these movies. I'm going to look it up right now because it's going to drive me crazy. Peter Sellers. There it is. Peter Sellers, Mata Hari. What is that name of that movie? Casino Royale. Okay. So I'm going to bring it all together in how they do things in reality, and then they sell you the movie of it so that you go, that couldn't have possibly happened in reality because I watched it in a movie. Mata Hari was a real woman. She was real. It's in this book, and it's well documented that she would, and it's unfortunate. She was a woman who, she was wealthy, and then her family lost everything when she was young. So she married a wealthy military guy, moved to the Asian Pacific, learned dances, divorced her husband, and moved to Paris to become a star. And for a few years in the early 1900s, and this is probably from like 1905 to 1910, she was a stripper dancer extraordinaire. in all the high elite places. Okay? You can look this up. I'm trying to find her in this book. Well, anywho, so Mata Hari, when she had lots of different lovers, lots of different admirers, and they always say admirers, but basically she was prostituting herself out to a high level, and people gave her things. Kind of sounds like the modeling industry right now, doesn't it? Kind of sounds like Hollywood right now, doesn't it? And it got worse. When World War One broke out, she ended up having to become a spy to make money because she was getting blackmailed. But this is before like MK Ultra and really understanding how you can program the mind fully, you know, so that they're compartmentalized and they won't remember certain things. They'll do a mission if you say a trigger word, but they won't remember anything. So you're totally covered. She was the predecessor to all of this. She was the first one. She was the first starlet. Okay, the first starlet that was used simultaneously as entertainment, mass entertainment. People, they would make money off of her mass entertainment, of her being sexual, sex trafficking. They sold her all over the place. And then spying. Look at Beyonce again for the very first time. Look at Angelina Jolie. Once you start researching Mata Hari, okay, everything's going to start making sense. And they made a joke out of it in Casino Royale. In 1967, Peter Sellers, who clearly was connected to MI6, there's no doubt about it, he did a spoof on the whole story. So people that watch this movie would think the whole darn thing's a gag. They would never believe that this actually really happened in real life. So check out Casino Royale. And it's funny. That's always great. I mean, like, you know, you always use humor. It's always good. Humor's always fantastic. They've used humor on us, against us. And we're going to start using humor for us to free us. So watch that movie again. It's really important. What was this other thing I want to talk about? It talked about Vatican in here. Again, I'm going off the cuff, so I'm flipping through some pages to try to get exactly what I wanted to talk about. There's so many things, guys. There's just so many things. So let's start with the whole idea of why people came to America in the first place. Let's go over here. Check this out. This actually talks about why we came here in the first place. Okay. It says, can you read that? I want to just make sure you guys read this. You can read this for yourselves. I think it's really important. When the first immigrants arrived on American shores, the art of spying had already been developed in the courts of England, France, Spain, Portugal, Holland, Italy, Germany, Russia, and Belgium. Many of these immigrants hoped to leave behind religious persecution, poverty, and the intrigues of courts and find economic opportunity and freedom in America. Most of the first settlers on the East Coast came from England, Scotland, Ireland, France. On the West Coast, they came from Spain. What kind of poverty were they talking about? All the stuff that we're finding out about Vatican and all this controversial way back in the day. But I want you to read what they said about Mata Hari. Where is it? These are all the guys, okay? And they used Mata Hari to get information from different high-level men. She would seduce them, have sex with them, and then get information from them. She was the first one. And look who's on this page. Oh boy. Okay. So, what I'm going to try to do now is look for, here it is. Perfect. Okay. So, here we are on the chapter of Intelligence Highlight, the Papacy. It's right there. I want you to know, this is important to notice that this book felt it important to have an entire chapter on this. Why? Why? Well, let's read. Since the early times, the Roman Catholic Church has needed information and intelligence. Since the very beginning. When the Church was first struggling to survive within the structure of the repressive regime of Rome, I would say that the Catholic Church went in line with Rome. The Catholic Church is not Christian. They weren't getting martyred. But anyway, intelligence was a matter of survival. The early Christians were apprehended and executed in a matter of course. As the doctrines of Christ spread, the organization and power of the Church spread as well. Okay, this is going to be interesting. Have you read enough of that? Let's go over here to this next part. Okay. Mm-hmm. Do they really? Not anymore. Okay. Okay, so everything's a mixed bag. You get good people and bad people in lots of different situations, but ultimately the papacy, and especially right now with what they are trying to sell, is no bueno. It's no bueno. It has nothing to do with God. Maybe early on, but it was infiltrated. There's no doubt about it. So what I've kind of put together in this research, and you guys can figure this out yourself as well, it's fine. The one thing that really stuck true with me when I was reading this, and there's a very close alliance to the mafia with the Catholic Church. I mean, if you look at Martin Scorsese films, I mean, forget the fact of even knowing real mafia people that are hardcore Catholics. I'm not gonna. There are a lot of mafia that presume to be hardcore Catholics. Okay. And people would kind of go, well, how's that even possible? Like, how can you rectify the two? And in the 1970s, Martin Scorsese did a fantastic job in destroying the Christian philosophy by always pushing the conundrum between Catholics and the mafia and going, you know, this is a joke. But point in fact, the mafia and the Catholic Church are one and the same, and the mafia is the intelligence and the dirty workers of the papacy all around the globe. That is why JFK was allowed to rise up into the presidency, because they thought they were going to have a takeover. But the thing is that JFK was actually singularly an individual, and he wanted to do something good. And some want to do the same thing too. both got assassinated. So there's that. And I think I've given you enough to kind of chew on tonight. It's a lot for all 3 people that follow me. There'll be more, but I think for now that's a lot. And look up these different names. There's one more name to look up, and maybe you can help me on this, because once I noticed that Henry Lesoc was the French artist that lived in Pittsburgh up through the 1940s, I want to understand where there's a connection between Henry and Andy Warhol. I just, in my gut is telling me there's a connection there between the two, because I know Andy Warhol was funded by the CIA. I know that to create pop culture, and he's funded to this day to no end for all the wrong reasons. So it'd be really great if some of you could look that up. The one thing I did find with this was that there's a woman named Eleanor Ward. Okay, she was a U.S. art dealer from the early 1900s to well, I guess maybe 1920s, 1930s to 1970, and she was the one that gave Andy Warhol his first official artist show, solo artist show. Before then, he had been in marketing, he'd been in advertising, he was a commercial artist, which we know through advertising, Mad Men, marketing corporations, marketing, selling stuff. That's all. Okay. Do I have to say it? Pop culture. Selling you shit. Selling you shit. And then they grab somebody who's selling you shit, really good at making drawings that sell you crap. GE, he was making hand over fist as an artist for these different corporations in New York, that we now have come to find out sell us poison. What a perfect person to go ahead and go beyond and create a whole new economy and mentality for a whole new generation to want to be like him and listen to what he has to say about a lot of different things. Okay, so that's all I got to say. That's a lot. And I hope you guys have a good night. And leave some comments if you like, for all 3 people that listen to this. I'll talk to you soon. All right, bye.